Hey there, and welcome to A Well-Rounded Life, the podcast, a space for creative entrepreneurs seeking an intentional life and biz filled with grace, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Jamira. I'm a mama, wife, dessert fanatic, and on the ultimate mission to get you closer to your idea of what it means to live a well-rounded life. Right here is where you'll find curated resources, quick tips, and relatable stories, no matter what season of life you're in. So hang out with me for a bit and let's dive in. Hello, friend. Jamira here, and I want to welcome you back to the show. We are rocking and rolling and getting into the groove of season 3, and I am having the best time sharing with you each week. I appreciate the feedback that I've received from each of you, the reviews, the kind words, DMs, and whatnot. I truly appreciate it, as I said, and I just want to make sure that you know that as well. It means a lot to me and the team that you guys are rocking with us in this next phase as we settle in. I told you that season 3 was going to be popping with fresh content and amazing guests, and today is no different. I am thrilled to share the mic with my guest, Sarajane Case. Those of us that are in the creative space, we have become very familiar with Sarajane over the past few years. And for those that are unfamiliar with Sarajane, her Instagram page, Enneagram and Coffee, or the topic of Enneagram in general, has been something that has been the buzz and talk of the town. So you are in for a treat today. Sarajane has carved out some time for us today to break the 9 Enneagram types all the way down. So no need to look at your screen a little confused because she's got you covered. She's going to school us today about all things Enneagram and how it relates to living more well-rounded. So before I bring Sarajane to the mic, I'm going to read her official bio. Sarajane Case is an author, speaker, and podcaster based out of Asheville, North Carolina. She's been featured in publications like Apartment Therapy, The Everyday Girl, Parade Magazine, and was named a 2018 Person on the Rise by Honeybook. With an Instagram account of over 500,000 followers, a podcast that regularly stays at the top of the charts in self-help, and a book coming out in April of 2020, Sarajane is a rising leader in the self-help industry. You can find more from her on her Instagram, instagram.com/Enneagram and Coffee. Her podcast, Enneagram and Coffee, can be found on iTunes and Spotify, and her website is enneagramandcoffee.com. Make sure you are pre-ordering her book, The Honest Enneagram, wherever books are sold. I dropped all of that in the show notes and on our blog, so I've got you covered there. I personally can't wait to get my hands on her new book. But before we do that, let's welcome Sarajane Case to the show. Hello, Sarajane. How are you?
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
I am beyond excited to have you on the show. We were chatting a little bit just a few minutes ago, and I was telling Sarajane that she has been a dream guest of mine. So when she said yes, I was so excited. I ran downstairs to tell my husband, I'm like, she said yes. So I'm excited. No, because I really am into this whole Enneagram thing, which a lot of us are, because it's mind blowing at how a number can say so much about you. But before we get into all that, do me a favor and introduce yourself to our well-rounders.
Yeah, so I am Sarajane Case. I'm the creator of Enneagram and Coffee. It's an Instagram and a podcast all about the Enneagram. And I'm also an author and a speaker working primarily with this incredible tool to help people in their self-compassion journey and in making their life as an entrepreneur and content creator just a little bit easier.
That's awesome. And I've been using the word Enneagram, and I know some of my listeners are like, what? So do me another favor, and can you briefly just give a description of the different numbers and types and whatnot?
Yeah, so the Enneagram is essentially a map of human psyche, right? So it's like these 9 distinct ways that we show up in the world. And I think of them more as character structures. So while a lot of these tests, they're showing us like who we are, like what we do, the Enneagram's showing us why we do it. So that's what I'm going to run through the 9 types and give you kind of a little bit of an insight into the motivation, because that's where we're going to really recognize ourselves.
Okay.
So we can start with type 1. Type 1 is the perfectionist or the reformer. And they're focused on being good and not being corrupt. Type 2 is the helper. They're focused on being loved or being liked. You have type 3 is the achiever. They're focused on success and achievement. Type 4 is the individualist. They're focused on finding and expressing their identity. We have type 5, the investigator, and type 5 is focused on inputting knowledge so that they can feel capable and equipped. And we have type 6, which is the loyalist. They're focused on their safety and their security. We have type 7, which is the enthusiast. They're focused on having a satisfying life and not being trapped in emotional pain. And we have type 8, the challenger, who's focused on not being controlled and therefore sometimes being in control of their own life and their own choices. We have type 9, the peacemaker, who's focused on connection with others and their own peace of mind.
Wow. And they're all so different. I'm a 1, as you said, the reformer perfectionist.
Yeah.
Shocking. And I'm a close 3. And Sarah Jane and I were talking about it. I'm going to link a test in the show notes so you can see where you fall on the scale. And over the past few years, the Enneagram has been the talk of the town. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think, we're in a season culturally where we're really expecting people to take self-responsibility.
Hmm.
And I think the Enneagram is kind of the ultimate self-responsibility tool. It's looking at what do I bring to the table, both good and bad, and how can I see that I'm more than my personality feels like the limitations that I put on myself in the terms of my personality. So, we're really able to look at, what am I doing that maybe isn't serving myself or other people? And I think our society is in a season where we're really wanting that from our culture. I think in addition, we're kind of in a space where we have most of our basic human needs met in our society, at least for most people, not everybody, but we are on that like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We're
Mhm.
in that ability to really get to the space of self-actualization and self-exploration is a higher priority.
Yeah, it is definitely. I don't know, one day it just showed up, this whole Enneagram. I would start to see numbers and really cool graphics on social, and then I stumbled across your
Mhm.
Instagram page, and then life just got even better because you get to see all the different numbers, and I start to see my family members in their numbers,
Yeah.
and I'm like, "Yep, that is them." So that is it's really cool to kinda see how they all interact and intertwine, and just how different they are, but how we can all still work together,
Mm.
in some way. Which brings me to another question I have is, do you think that the Enneagram has benefits? You mentioned, some stuff earlier, but do you believe that there are benefits that other personality tests don't have, such as Myers-Briggs?
Yeah. So I think the biggest benefit of something like Myers Briggs or DISC or Strengths Finders is really learning how to harness the skills of your personality. The Enneagram goes so much deeper into actually separating ourselves from our personality, recognizing that these patterns of behavior, we actually don't have to live into them. And so, let's say I'm a type 7, I spend most of my life trying to avoid pain, and that causes me, you know, ultimately to create suffering for myself and for other people,
Mm.
that I can actually choose to not operate from that state of mind. I can recognize that I'm safe, I'm okay, I can experience pain and still survive even if it doesn't feel like it initially. So it's a little bit more of creating that inner witness who can recognize when I'm operating out of my type pattern, usually when I'm triggered or scared or frustrated, and then really choosing behaviors that align more with who I want to be and where I want to go.
Yeah, you make a great point because when I do look at the characteristics of my type 1, and I sometimes have to check myself, like, perfectionist, reformer, like, you take a chill pill. It's okay. Done is better than perfect sometimes. So
Mhm.
if you are aware of your number, it can definitely help check you and put you at ease, or remind you you might need to shift or change your mindset sometimes, and that's okay. So knowing my number has definitely helped me there.
Mhm.
And, what do you think? Like, do you think it's important for someone to know their number? Do you think it's a necessity, or how do you feel that plays out?
Yeah. Well, I think and I want to touch back on what you said just a second ago, because I think when we're thinking about our number, it really is the thing that we think we have to be in order to be loved, accepted, successful. So,
Right, right.
so that feeling of like, I have to be perfect or I have to be happy. So we're almost releasing the have to in this journey. And so because of that, I think it's so worth exploring. What is it that you think you have to be in order to receive the things that you want to receive: love, acceptance, success? Because what's so beautiful is the reality that we can have all of those things without playing that role.
Mm,
We get to be, we're innately worthy, we're innately lovable, our success is inevitable, and allowing that to be true will allow us to kind of just take a break
right.
on overworking to achieve the things that we think we're supposed to be looking
Yeah.
for.
Great points. It's just sometimes we just have to do some reflecting and do
Mhm.
some moving and shifting and know that it's going to be okay and to give ourselves some grace along the way because I'm trying to be better at that, to just give myself some grace and know that
Yeah.
you can do things different ways. It doesn't have to be so just stringent, straight and narrow. It's okay to swerve and curve and do what you need to do there. So, and then thinking of Enneagram and relationships and whatnot, do you think that certain numbers pair better when it comes to romantic relationships? Like, should I, well, not me because I'm married, but should someone that's a certain number be looking for another type of number the same way people trying to pair with like their zodiac signs?
Oh, yeah. So you might find some trends out there. Like there's a lot of 2-5 couples, there's a lot of 1-7 couples. So there's a little bit of a natural draw that might happen. But really, when we're thinking about relationships, you're really wanting to focus on, is this person doing their work?
Hmm.
And because we can be in a relationship to any number if we're both doing our work. If one person is, not participating, not engaging, and you are participating and engaging in the process, then you might find you're a little bit incompatible. But and I know a lot of people, so this is like pre-marriage, right? You're dating, you're looking, look for someone who's doing the work. If you are already married and your partner's not participating, you can invite them into the work without forcing them to be interested in the Enneagram. So I say this because this is a question I get a lot, which is, well, what if my partner, my mom, they won't participate? You can ask them questions. You can request that they go to therapy. You can request that they hire a coach. Like whatever it is that you need and out of the relationship, you can ask for those things without having them buy into the Enneagram itself.
Right. No, that's a great point. I love how you said, as long as they're doing the work, like no
Yeah.
one wants to be with the lazy, complacent person. So as long as they're showing up, that should be, they should get at least some bonus points and
Mhm.
kudos for that, that they
And
want to be involved.
Yeah, and with the Enneagram, when we're not participating, what's happening is that we're just in our unconscious behavior patterns, which cause suffering for ourselves and for others. So when we're in those unconscious behavior patterns and the other person is participating in the work of getting out of their unconscious behavior patterns, then you're in an unequal relationship where one person's going to be carrying the load, and you're gonna find yourself repeatedly in the same patterns of suffering in that relationship if you're not both acting
Ooh, yeah.
toward the good.
When you said the person carrying the load, and then at some point they get tired and they get burnt
Yeah.
out, and then it's a train wreck. So you
Mhm.
don't want that to be the case by any means. And as far as friendships and how we interact socially, do you feel like the Enneagram plays a role there as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I think if we go back to that, these types are the things we think we have to be in order to be part of a group or part of like an interest, be accepted or welcomed, then we can really own, well, what is it that I keep bringing to the table
Hmm.
over and over and over again that isn't serving these dynamics, isn't serving these relationships? And for every type, of course, that's gonna be different. For a type 7, when things get hard, they might wanna flee. For a type 2, when things get hard, they might double down. They might over sacrifice. And so recognizing, do I continuously exit relationships too soon? Do I continuously stay in relationships that aren't serving me for the long term? Do I feel judgmental of the people in my life? Do I get a little bit overprotective? Really owning your own role in your friendships can be such an asset in maintaining relationships for the long term.
Oh, I think that is so good. So good because I think about my friends and how we're all so different and we all have different numbers. And then if there
Mhm.
is conflict or if there's support that's needed, how we all show up and how we all
Yeah.
take care of each other or how we just handle conflict and whatnot. So knowing their numbers and knowing the personalities, it off the break, it definitely helps if there are some things we need to fine tune to grow together and to keep our friendship just safe
Mm.
and just at a good place. So I think it's so important to know the numbers so you can support your friends where they need you and show up as the best version of yourself.
Mhm. I think a good example of that is, so I'm a type 7 who I can be kind of like in my own world, doing my own thing. Someone described it one time as like a solo traveler through the universe.
Mhm.
And that's kind of how I've always viewed life. Like I just pop in and out of people's lives and but ultimately I'm like on my own. And I've like made friends with type 2s who relationships are the center of their universe. Relationships are the most important thing. And I've had to really learn, if I'm going to love a type 2, I need to text them. Like I need to, like, when I think about them, let them know I thought about them, which doesn't come first nature for me. But because I love the type 2, I can step outside of my natural way of being to show them love in their language, right? In the way that they're going to receive it.
Oh, that makes complete sense because if you're just doing your own thing, forgetting that it reminds me a little bit of like the 5 love languages, so when you are
Mhm.
interacting, but on a different level, but knowing that you have to meet people where they are and give them what they
Mhm.
need. Because I read that book last year, shockingly for the first time, but it opened up my eyes that everyone's love language is different, and then when people's
Mhm.
numbers are different, you have to kind of learn them because we are all coming from different walks of life, have different and a lot of things going on. So it's important to show up. I will say I'm good about texting. And my rule is if someone crosses my mind 3 times and I haven't talked to them in a long time, it's a sign that I need to stop what I'm
Mm.
doing to check on them just to make sure
Yeah.
they're okay because it's a reason they keep crossing my mind.
Yeah, and I think there are certain types who that's gonna mean a lot more to them, whereas I sat down with another 7 yesterday over coffee, and we were like, "Can there be a 6th love language that's just called space?" Where we're like, you're just like, "Yeah, do whatever's best for you, like, I'll see you when I see you." Because
No
that
hard
to me,
feelings.
yeah, exactly. Like, when someone says to me, "Oh, yeah, of course, do what's best for you," that to me is love. And so, really owning okay, this is what love is to me, but how can I show love in the unique ways that they're gonna receive it, as well as know how to ask for what it is that I need in a relationship.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, perfect sense. Do you think that your Enneagram number can change over time and as we grow?
So our number stays the same over the course of our lives. However, there are so many different little elements like our dominant wing, our subtypes, there's these lines that we move to other numbers in stress and in rest, and those can alter, which can really make the tone and the way that we show up look very different.
You mentioned the wings and the subtypes. Can you just briefly explain those two, what that means?
Yeah. So the Enneagram symbol, it's a circle. So there's each number goes around the circle. On either side of your number on the circle, in chronological order, you will find two other numbers. Those are your wings. These are two types that you have access to in your personality. So maybe you have a dominant wing where you kind of lean into one or the other. Maybe you're balanced in your wings. Maybe you're not utilizing either of your wings. That's totally normal. The work really is in balancing them out. So, an example of this is type 1. Your wings are type 9 and type 2. So as a type 1, you can be a little, you're more inclined toward perfectionism. You have kind of like, the right way. Type 9 is the most open-minded, most accepting, most able to see multiple perspectives. So really pulling in that 9 wing can give you that ability to really hone in on those skills And then on type 2 is the most other referencing. They're very focused on what other people need, what they're doing, what will work for them, how to love them, how to receive love. They're very amicable. And so you can pull in the skills from either of those sides to kind of round out your strong one tendencies.
Hmm. That's interesting because I'm a one wing too. And
Mhm.
one of the things, I'm just very much a nurturer, and I definitely want to make sure everybody is okay. I'm the eldest child. And especially like when my mom passed away, it was one of the things where just making sure everyone's good, they're okay, everything's right.
Mhm.
And it makes everything you're saying just makes perfect sense and describes me to a T. It's really scary.
I know. It is like when I read the description of, well, I'll talk subtypes next, but when I read the description of my particular subtype, I felt like someone had watched my life and written it
Right.
down.
Seriously, like,
Yeah.
that's me, and I'm like, "This is eerie."
It
When I
is.
first started, like, reading and researching, it's very eerie, but it's exciting to know that, okay, it's written out that this is me and how I am, and take it, and we'll figure out how to deal with crazy old me, so
Yeah.
so subtypes.
Yeah, so our subtypes, we each have there's 3 distinct subtypes for every number. So that's, 1 to 1, self-preservation, and social. Each of these have are essentially the way that we survive, as, like, animals in the world. So, is it intimate connection, intense one-to-one connection? Is it, where you are in the social hierarchy, or is it just getting your basic needs met? And each of those adds like a particular flavor to every number. And 2 of those numbers on every type flow kind of with the type pattern and behavior. So a type 1 who's in one of the 2 like that flow with the type, they're going to be the perfectionist. They're going to struggle a little bit with judgment. They're going to focus more on like, how can I be good? How can I get this right? Whereas the counter type, which is the one of the subtypes that flows against the pattern of the type structure, they're going to show up a little bit differently. So, example for me is I'm a social 7. Sevens are very focused on getting their needs met, getting what they want. The social 7 will almost do the opposite in behavior and really value moderation, really value going last, putting themselves last, and not just taking, taking, taking. And so there can be kind of this consistent push pull in a counter type where it's like your ultimate motivation is conflicting with what you think is the right way to be. And so they kind of push and pull against each other.
Wow. Yeah, like, this is a lot.
It is. Yeah, it's very deep. It's very in depth.
Yeah, but you clearly know your stuff, so I'm always, like, on the edge of my seat, like, taking it all in because it's just so much you can learn about ourselves and how we show up in the world, so I love all of that.
Mm,
One question that I love to ask our guests, as you know, on the show, we do not believe in the word balance,
huh,
which, can be challenging for Enneagram numbers, all of them. But
mhm.
what would you say is your definition of living well-rounded?
I like this a lot. I'm a seasonal person. So especially with work, I think of like it as in terms of seasons. So I have a sprint season, which I'm in right now, which is like summit launch. I'm about to launch a book. And so I'm doing all of these things. I'm in a really heavy season of work. And that's okay because I'm going to have rest season soon.
Right.
And I think it only works because I have a deadline, right? I know the end point, I can see it, and I can moderate my energy in this time so that I can fully enjoy the rest when it gets here.
Yes, absolutely. I talk about that often as and we both were at Creative at Heart, round
Mhm.
9, and we were both speakers there. And when I was doing my keynote, I mentioned that preparing for Creative at Heart and preparing for the other launches I had at the time, I was in go, go, go mode. But as
Yeah.
soon as Creative at Heart was over, it was living it up with the family vacation, because I had deadlines, like you said. And so I like how you said you have seasons and you know that you have to buckle down, get the work done, and then you can
Mm.
celebrate versus trying to juggle everything and trying to be here, there, and everywhere. You're focused on work right now, and then you'll be able to reap the benefits, in the coming weeks once everything is launched. So I
Mhm.
love that. What tips do you have for numbers 1 through 9 for living well-rounded and mainly in the workplace for our friends that aren't like entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So I love this question. So I'm going to run through all the 9. Type 1, I would say if you can create a deadline for when a project is finished, right? Like that mantra of progress over perfection is so important. And I think the easiest way to do that is to really create a deadline for no matter what state this is in, I'm going to be done at this point. And if you have a hard time with that, then maybe what you want to do is you want to have someone who proofreads it or runs through it and just gives you the final okay and says, okay, yeah, it's good to go. But yeah, create that deadline, stick to it, progress over perfection.
Noted.
For yeah. For our type 2s, you really have to find time where you are unreachable. Type 2s, they're going to be the most tempted to give up their work's time to people who have needs in the moment. So you really need to not check your email all day. You need to turn your phone off. You need to be inaccessible for large chunks of time so that you can really focus on the tasks at hand. Type 3s, your focus is going to have to really be on how do I want to feel in my life, not what do I want to achieve. So, Danielle Laporte has a really good book called The Desire Map, which talks about setting goals based off of feelings, desired feelings versus accomplishments. Because what's going to happen otherwise is you're going to get to the top of the mountain and you're going to look around and there's just another peak to reach. So, you're going to climb that mountain, you're going to get to the top, and there's just another peak. And it's pretty lonely up there if you're not focused on how you're feeling on the climb up. If you're not focused on how do I want to feel calm, do I want to feel excited, and creating a lifestyle that really supports the way you want to feel. Then type 4s, the focus for type 4s is really letting yourself do the mundane day-to-day tasks to do the great things. So type 4s kind of really prefer either being this like, well, I heard a type 4 say, I would rather be a tragic failure than a moderate success. And I think that's the most accurate description for this space of I'd rather not do anything and really just be like, oh man, I'm terrible. And kind of live in that like space of like, I'm just a failure, or be really, really special, really unique, really qualified and a pioneer of my time. But this middle space of day-to-day tasks, like going to the post office, paying your bills, showing up at your desk every single day to work, those things feel average. And so,
Mhm.
but you can't, the hard thing of anyone who's experienced any kind of success knows is that the success got there because of all of those average days of just showing up, doing the work, and some days it was magical and some days it was just pretty normal. And so fours have to get comfortable with their normality. And then we have type 5. Type 5s, I have a similar recommendation as I do to type 1s, which is set a deadline. But what the deadline I want you to set is when are you done researching? So and really, I think the easiest way for 5s to do this is before they start, really get clear on what does an expert need to know in order to call themselves an expert. Because a 5 might research for 32 years on a topic and never feel comfortable calling themselves an expert and putting themselves
Right,
out there and teaching the things that they know. And so they have to really determine ahead of time, when am I finished, right?
right.
And then we have type 6. For our type 6s, I say run your fear to the end of the earth, because type 6s can do this worst case scenario thinking where they can really convince themselves that they cannot do the things they want to do. So if they want to quit their job, let's say, they'll say, oh, I just can't do that because what's going to happen, And if I say run that to its course, like what's the worst case scenario here? And really play it out, say it out loud, you might find that you're already in it, right? You might find that you quit your job, you don't make the money that you thought you were going to make, you can't pay your rent, so you have to get another job. Well, you already have the job,
Mhm.
so you're already in your worst case scenario. So why don't you just try? And then we have type 7s. For type 7s, again, I say set a deadline, but your deadline is for when you're allowed to evaluate if you move on or not. So type 7s, we really value life satisfaction and life feeling good. And so what can happen when we do that is we're a quick yes, because it feels good to say yes. You're a quick yes, and then you're a quick never mind.
Mm.
Because if things start to not feel good in the moment, you might want to back out. And so what I would say for our 7s is, if you can, say ahead of time how long you're going to commit to something and really stick to that, so that when those negative feelings arise, you can breathe through them, you can move on. Because what what's important to remember is those feelings will not be here forever. So if you can get to the end and you can reevaluate at that point, you can do so from a neutral space of, a neutral feeling, not trying to escape a negative emotion.
Right. Right.
And then type eights really have to remember that their body and their mind have limitations. You're not physically impenetrable, right? Like you are a human breathing person who has to drink water, who has to sleep, who has to work less hours than maybe you think you have to work. And so really work on moderating your energy levels, managing what goes in, what goes out, and allowing yourself to pace yourself instead of going hard. I think of eights as like a bullet train. No matter what gets in their way, they're going to just take it over. And if they can really slow their pace down, they're going to be a lot more effective, and they're just going to feel a lot better.
Right.
And we have type 9. So finally, for type 9s, the biggest struggle that most of our type 9s get into is this fear of future discomfort. Nines love to feel comfortable, and they don't like to step outside of their comfort zone. So there can be this, I want to do a thing, but I'm worried about what will happen if I do, because what if it's hard? What if I don't know how to do these things? I'm going to have to learn how to do them. And to really eliminate that fear of future discomfort, you really have to focus on what's my next logical step. You
Mm-hmm.
don't need to figure out how you're going to build the whole entire wall. You just need to know what's the next step right in front of me. If you can focus on that, then it's just one little step at a time instead of this whole big mountain that you have to tackle.
Awesome. No, those are such great tips. And when you were talking about number one, I made notes of some things
Mm.
that I need to do, which is set deadlines and just own it and stick with it. And so I am going to be doing that today, setting some deadlines on all these projects that I want to get done. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
But what are you most looking forward to in this next season of your life?
Well, I have a book coming out, and I that means that I get to go do bookstore events and really meet people, because I think that being present with people in human form is just the most beautiful, exciting thing.
Awesome.
And anytime I get to meet people in person is a joy.
That's awesome. I'm very much looking forward to your book. I mentioned in my intro that your Instagram page, Enneagram and Coffee, has over 500,000, yes, over 500,000 followers. And so the fact that we get a book coming from you is such a treat, and I cannot wait to dive into that. My favorite part of the show is our rapid fire segment. And so I have to ask you, are you ready for
I'm
rapid
so
fire?
ready.
All
So
right.
excited.
It's a fun part. All right, Sarah Jane, you're stuck on an island. What are three things you must have with you besides family and all that?
Um, a journal and a pen. Do a journal and a pen get to be one, or are they two?
I'll let you have it as one. One of the
Okay.
journals that has the little insert for the pen. You got it.
A journal and a pen, um, a camera,
Oh,
and a really good book, and I'll go with something like Eat, Pray, Love that I could read over and over and over.
okay. That's good. That's good. What is your favorite food?
Ooh, I love sushi, and I also just love vegetables and carbs together, like rice and vegetables. It's really boring.
The fact that you said vegetables, I think this is a first on the show. Everybody is all this bad stuff, and you're like, vegetables. What is your favorite place traveled so far?
Copenhagen.
Okay. That's another first for the show. And when you were little and someone were to ask you the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? What was your answer?
I wanted to be a writer.
Oh, look at you. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's so awesome. What is a misconception that people have about you?
That I'm a type 2, that I'm
Oh.
a helper.
Meanwhile, you're like, just leave me alone. Let me
Yeah,
work.
exactly.
If you could meet anyone in the world, who would it be?
Mm, I think I'm gonna say Glennon Doyle Mountain.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because,
I just think that she is really good at radical self-ownership, and She has a really big heart for activism in a way that is inspiring for me, and a reminder of how important it is to stand up for people
That's
who need
awesome.
it.
That's awesome. If you could be any other number besides your number 7, which number would you choose?
Ooh, I think of 5.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And why is that? Bonus question.
Yeah, like, they get to I'm like, they get to, they really go deep into their subjects, and they're really good at moderating their energy, which is a struggle for me. I have to work toward that, and, they have, like, a clear separation between their emotions and their expression of their feelings.
Oh, wow. That's good. If you could learn any skill in the world, what would it be?
I would love I would love to be fluent in, like, sign language or French or Spanish or some other language.
Yeah, that's always been on my personal bucket list. I'm assuming this is something maybe on your bucket list, or do you have something else on
Mhm.
there?
On the bucket list?
Yeah, what you got on your list?
Oh, I wanna go to all 7 continents.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. My goal right now is to visit all 50 states before I turn
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
So that's been my goal for a while, and so I'm making my way across the United States
I love that.
before I turn 50. What is your guilty pleasure?
I would say well, I'm a 7, so I don't feel guilty about very many pleasures.
Do your
But I'm
thing.
like, if someone were to have a guilty pleasure I'm just kidding. I would probably say whiskey. I love a good whiskey.
Oh, right. Good
Yeah.
times. That's so fun. That's so fun. Well, that was a fun interview, and I want to make sure our well-rounders can find you on the web and your book and whatnot. So, where are you hanging out on the internet?
Yeah, so you can find me at enneagramandcoffee.com or Enneagram and Coffee on Instagram or on iTunes or Spotify, anywhere you can find a podcast. And I would love to meet you there. And the book is you can find links to the book there as well.
Awesome. And we're going to link all of this in the show notes and on our website, the blog, and whatnot. This was so much fun. Sarajane, thank you for hanging out with me today and our well rounders. We will be anxiously awaiting for the release of your book. And per usual, I will be keeping up with you over on Instagram and just celebrating the book when it comes out. But thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a joy.
Wow, wow, wow. I learned so much today, and I know you did too. I can't wait to dive a bit more into my personal Enneagram type, which is 1 wing 2. And I hope that our time with Sarajane today inspired you to do the same, to dig more into your number and to take the test and to see how your number, your type actually affects your work, your relationships, and all that you do. If you haven't already done so, be sure to follow Sarajane on Instagram. She is at Enneagram and Coffee, and stay connected with all things Enneagram. Once you do take the test, I would love it if you tagged us on Instagram to let us know you are listening, or if you're on Facebook, and then take the test and let us know what your type is. And speaking of things that I need you to check off your list, have you given us a 5-star rating and review? That would mean so much to me if you could take a few seconds to do just that. Yep, just a few seconds of showing us some love would mean the world to me. And if you're enjoying the episodes of season 3 thus far, we want to make sure you are subscribed to the show. And did you know that we have a weekly newsletter that goes out on Fridays? Our weekly roundup is a quick snippet of our roundups for the week. So check out the show notes or go over to the website, awellroundedlifepodcast.com, and get locked in, get on the list, be an insider, and find out everything that we have going on here in the world of living well-rounded. Until next week, friends, go and live well-rounded, and I will chat with you soon. Bye. Friends, thanks for kicking it with us this week. Remember to subscribe so you're notified when a new episode airs. I'd love it if you leave us a review and share this goodness with your squad. Until next time, seek a well-rounded life and remember to focus on what matters most.